Let's talk about a different kind of mommy makeover, one that starts from the inside and then is so evident from the outside. Today's story is about a mom who not only got better and was able to do things like carry a load of laundry or pick up her little ones, but she was just glowing with joy and peace and a good night's sleep, which we all need. So this is about how her whole family got help with different things because their nervous systems were better able to self-regulate and heal and take care of the things that they needed to. We're also going to talk about just the energy of showing up and jumping in, and that's when the party starts. So I'm Jenna Quentin, founder of Adjust Your Media and host of What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate podcast, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you today. Today on What Chiropractic Doesn't Cure, Stories of Innate, we have Dr. Paul Given. He is a chiropractor in Kingston, Ontario. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Jenna.
So first off, how long have you been in practice there?
Yikes. Since Dad was a boy.
Yeah.
I graduated in 93, so this is going to be 32 years now.
Awesome. I love that. Well, you're so passionate and you say it on your website too about speaking and teaching and sharing wellness-based chiropractic. So I know we're going to have a great conversation today. So tell us, what's your story? Whose life was improved with chiropractic care?
I mean, 32 years of this, I have lots of stories.
I bet.
But the one when you first asked me that came to mind, because I really love like family and kids care.
Yeah.
So this pretty young, well, compared to me, pretty young woman, Marissa, she was 31. She came in, and at 31, she had 5 kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously all those pregnancies in not that long a time, her body's kind of beaten up. So she had a lot of low back issues, pelvic pain, couldn't lift a basket of laundry, couldn't lift her 2 littlest ones up.
Yeah.
She was really struggling and just not sleeping, kids not sleeping. Like she was just worn down, and people have that kind of pale, almost gray tinge under the skin. Anyway, so she just got what we were trying to get across and share, and jumped into care. And in about a month, she's already looking different.
Yeah.
And, women, it's almost like a facelift. When that color starts to come back and the lines and just the worry and the anxiety, all that starts to change, they just look different.
Mm-hmm.
I should be taking before and after photos.
Yeah.
But about a month in, she called on Monday and said, I don't know if I can come today. We've been all weekend in the hospital with our 2-year-old, Maisie, ear infection, and nothing they've done has helped. So I'm just exhausted. I said, well, look, you need to be adjusted. Bring her and just let me check her.
Mm-hmm.
So this little girl is like pale as a ghost, obviously unhappy, hasn't slept all weekend either. So little kids, I just set them on my lap.
Yeah.
So I set her in my lap and I look at leg lengths. They're off, like right side's pulled up quite short. There's this hard little rock right there by her atlas. And so when I adjust little kids, I just put my finger on that and I hold it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably, just over a minute. And I feel it just like a pat of butter melting.
Mm-hmm.
It's soft. And she kind of just gives this big, and slumps back against me.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an awesome little moment. But when her mom called the next day, she said, I didn't even think you did anything because it didn't look like much, but she fell asleep in the car on the way home, and she's still asleep now.
Yeah.
And so the next week, she brings the baby, Teddy. He's 9 months old. He's got a whole cheek covered with eczema. His eyes are all red and crusty and just nasty looking, and he's never slept through the night. So same thing, right atlas, just like his sister. That's the one that tends to get beaten up in the birth process. So it's the thing I look at first with kids.
Yeah.
So we start work with him. So the next weekend comes Casper, who's 9. Now, he's got severe ADHD, like way below grade level in school. He's got a Tourette's kind of facial tic where he goes every 3 or 4 minutes all day long. So imagine how that's going in the chicken yard at school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he doesn't sleep at night. So we're adjusting the 4 of the whole family. And a month, 5 weeks later, I do a reassessment on everyone. So mom is happily carrying laundry, picking up her kids, just looks like a different person. Maisie sleeps all night, never had another ear infection. Teddy, the baby, his eyes are crystal clear, blue and white, and the eczema on his cheek is about the size of a dime now. And Casper, there's been like, I think 3 or 4 phone calls and conversations with the teacher and the principal at school about the change in his behavior and him ramping up the whole, like his whole cognitive and learning function. The Tourette's thing is gone
Yeah.
and he sleeps all night. And big family, small house, he shares a room with his 14-year-old sister. And that's when she chirps in and she goes, Mom, it's not just that. When he was asleep, he would flop around like a fish in the bottom of the boat. And now he wakes up in the same position he went to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole ripple effect through the family because if the kids don't sleep, mom doesn't sleep. So now the kids are sleeping, they're doing better. Mom's sleeping, she's doing better. And like the whole thing, the whole dynamic of the family shifts and changes.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I'm happy to adjust an individual, but when I see a whole family start to change, then that's what makes, after 32 years, makes this still exciting, where I'm looking forward to Monday mornings and going to the office.
Yes. That is so cool. As you know, I have 4 kids, and that thing of, yes, if somebody isn't sleeping well, nobody is really true. That's such a great story too of people not really always understanding, which is why we're doing this podcast and sharing this conversation of how can doing the same thing help these different individuals in the family with different conditions or issues. So how would you explain that if somebody was like, okay, but it's an adjustment, how does it help all of these different things?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, you and I both know this isn't a bone doctor thing, it's a neurological doctor thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, purpose, the primary directive of the spine, it's shock absorber and axis of movement for the whole body, but it's the conduit that protects our central nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And the brainstem and spinal cord that run through the spine, that's really just a skinny part of the brain.
Yeah.
And if the spine is damaged or distorted, and it's usually with little ones, it's usually like just the stresses and traumas of birth,
Yeah.
then instead of protecting it, the spine is impairing the central nervous system and grasping that this is far beyond sore necks and backs. Like everything about me and you has to be processed and has come from there. What makes us alive runs through there, physically, physiologically, mentally, emotionally. I would even argue spiritually. There's a damping down. I compare it. Like it's like a phone that's at 2 or 3 bars instead of 5. And with kids, I just want normal tone and function,
Mm-hmm.
which is mutually exclusive from if you've got a problem, an issue in the spine that's not being addressed or corrected. And it's not a
Right.
treatment for any of those things. Subluxation, the misalignment and lost movement, we just reduce and correct that and then stand back and applaud at what God does when there's no interference.
Right. Right.
Who's used to say, I don't even know how to cure a ham, but there's an awful lot of people healed up in here.
Right. I love that. I love that because it is the thing of, like you said, the baby that had all of the gunk and snot and
Yeah.
everything. People look at that and they, on one hand, they might be like, what's wrong with the baby? But on the other hand, a lot of people would be like, oh, he's just like that. He just has that. And be like, well, it's not really a problem. But if the body is making that mucus, it's for a reason. It's trying to do something and it's not.
Trying to deal with a problem that it can't correct.
Exactly. It's trying to deal with a problem it can't correct. Our body doesn't just wake up and be like, I think I'll make extra mucus. Or, with pollen in spring, it doesn't just be like, you know what, I think I'll overreact to that. It's trying to deal with a problem that it can't correct. And so then, like you said, when normal function is restored, then it's like, oh, actually, hey guys, we could calm down on the mucus. We're good now. I love too that you mentioned birth being something that is a moment of stress on a baby's spine and nervous system because so many people do think, well, back pain, chiropractor, that goes together if you've been at a physically active job for years. Okay, wear and tear, you have back pain. But that's, I think, why people don't understand why babies should be checked is because they're not realizing that birth can be stressful on the baby. So I
Yeah.
love that you bring that up.
Well, OBs are taught that 30 to 90 pounds worth of pull and twist is appropriate during birth. Well, I did the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association Fellowship like way, way back when my kids were little. And 127 pounds decapitates a newborn. So when you're looking at thinking normal is 4 to 12 times the body weight of pull and twist with someone who's being curled up in a ball floating and never even held their head up, 8 out of 10 babies leave the hospital with some sort of issue. And the forces go way up if we're into vacuum extractors or forceps.
Right. Right.
And
And I think
and
about my friend who's a nurse and her husband's a paramedic. She had reached out to me because she was like, my baby has torticollis. She was like, I can see, one side is just restricted. And she's like, my pediatrician keeps telling me it's fine. So with their medical background, looking at this baby, they're like, how can you just call this fine? So, like when you say that many babies leave with some kind of issue, I think a lot of parents think, oh, then it must be like major bruising or major swelling. But issues that then result in this baby can't turn their head all the way, or the baby's head is, tilted and cocked. That's an issue.
they tend to be like they're not warm fuzzy babies, like they're cold prickly babies. I remember my older daughter saying about my youngest son, he's all stiff and pokey. And they're the ones that don't sleep well. They pick up every cold that comes along. They only latch on one side. They don't eat enough. They spit up half what they eat. And then that's the baby, that's restless baby syndrome. That moves into full blown colic. Just when they think finally they've grown out of that, well, they grow into ear infections.
Hmm.
And then the ear infections start. And then
Hmm.
they grow out of that as the tube changes shape. They grow into learning and behavior issues. There's just a parade of stuff that just follows them through a lifetime if it's never looked after or corrected. And we just want that normal tone and function. Those child is developing the adult neurological hardware before they're 5 years old. And what do we want? Like, do we want them to grow 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 hardware or 5 out of 5? Like, I would like them to do better than me, and hopefully for you, probably better than you, not just to be some mediocre version of what could have been.
Yes, I like that the idea, like, yes, the parade of things throughout their life, because it is just kind of changing shape, like all of those things that you mentioned, not just being isolated. Like, it's so funny to me sometimes when we think, like, oh, well, this headache isn't related to this thing. And you're like, it's in the same human, it's the same nervous system coordinating that.
Like those kids, if you don't get to it at that age, then they're 25 years old and they're like a young man in the trades who's got a blown out low back and the sciatica, and he's like looking at retraining. Or you got women in an office job with the chronic migraines, missing 2 days a week, or they're half there with their kids and their family because they're just so tired and worn and crawling along at some fraction of their potential.
Yes. Absolutely. I want to go back to the mom because I love that she was the entry point for this family to find wellness. And as a mom myself, I love everything that you said, that it wasn't just she was out of pain, but it was a glow up. Literally like her lights turning on, that facelift moment. And I feel that, and I feel when I'm in need of that. I have down to get adjusted tomorrow, and I know that I'm due. I know that I'm ready to be checked because even last night, so we're recording this on Monday morning. I don't know if anybody else gets Sunday scaries, but sometimes Sunday night just hits me, and it hits me hard. Just that anxiety rising, it's tax season, tomorrow, and almost that panic as a mom where you're like, no, we did homework. We have, groceries scheduled, all of these things. And to, as a mom, find something where you can self-regulate a little bit better is amazing. So I love that you brought that up about the mom, because I think moms are really a thermometer in the family of health, of wellness, of regulation.
Dads too, like we have the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We can really feel that when one of the adults is off. I think that sometimes families come in. Do you see this in your practice actually, where people come in with a baby with an issue and then it's the reverse, where it's the baby that starts off and then the parents go, "Hey, I want some of that."
Yeah, yeah. From either end, it works.
Yeah, perfect. I love that because, and I see this too in myself and my husband, where, we want the best for our kids and we would do anything for them to be, like you said, 5 out of 5, doing great. But then what a great thing, like you said, to bring in the whole family and be like, parents, if we are taking care of ourselves, if we are self-regulating, it's going to ripple out. And I love that you brought that up, like that ripple out effect into the family. So I also love, we met at Dynamic Essentials. Well, we met before that at Pure and Powerful. I believe we did, didn't we? Did we meet at Pure and Powerful first?
I think the first time I laid eyes on you was at DE in Clearwater a year ago,
Okay.
January,
Okay.
or maybe March. Anyway, one of my first two reentries to DE.
Yeah. These weekends just kind of blur together for me sometimes. So that was where we met. But I love that when I have seen you there, you just show up with this big energy. You're there all in. What are some things that help you to show up with that energy for your practice and just for your family?
Well, I often arrive there, I don't have it.
Mm,
Like I'm flat, I'm kind of dull, I'm an introvert. I would cheerfully hide out in my room most of the weekend,
yeah.
but I just push myself into it. It's just, like take 3 steps forward, jump into the pool, and then the party starts.
Yeah.
But it isn't often like they play awesome music at DE. I can dance like a fool, but I feel terrified the first time when I stand up to do it. But I just go
Mm,
and do it anyway, and
mm.
the whole thing just builds up and takes off.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love to. So from my, Sunday scaries night last night, this first thing this morning I told myself was, okay, we're gonna have to go to the Monday morning weights class. We're gonna have to go jump in, move my body. Like we're gonna have to get a little bit of momentum going physically in order to get, it's almost like I think my brain might have a crank start like an old Model T. So we might have to move that a little bit because yes, I could hide out for a while as well. But I love that it does feel, I think that it has an expanding factor, just like that mom showing up for her family, taking care of herself. It starts rippling out when we start showing up.
And I struggle a little with reentry on Mondays too. I mean, recently I'm building out a second office, so I'm all involved with that. We just did a 3-day screening at the home show, so there was no weekend this week. It was on my
Yeah.
feet on concrete all weekend. And, I know like today's going to be jam packed. I got a lot of people to look after and inspire and evaluate. And I'm a little overwhelmed by it all.
Mm,
But it's just, I find is, I already had a meeting this morning with my office manager about this. We were on the phone. I do a accountability call with an old friend every Monday morning, just things to kind of slough off my weekend and get me ready to be in there 100% engaged and serving.
I like it. Yeah. And I think for me, it helps those routine things of this is when we do these things on purpose with intention. Love it. Well, I would love to know kind of a little bit of your story. What brought you into chiropractic? How did you get into this profession, this calling?
Couple things. Like my grandmother was a nutrition fanatic. And so farm retired school teacher, farmer's wife, and it was back when nutrition wasn't cool. So she
Mm,
was always preaching at everyone in the family. And she would give my mom these books to read, and my mom would hide them behind the toaster for 2 weeks and give them back. And I was in my first year away at school, having a lot of fun. And I was looking around by the end of the year, and there were girls that were not looking as fresh or as nice as they had in September.
hmm.
And guys starting to look scruffy. And I thought, gee, I don't want this to happen to me. So I started reading her books and got really obsessed with nutrition enough that I decided to switch gears. And so I started applying to universities and in the University of Guelph doing a nutritional science program. But I also had an unstable low back,
Mm,
which would blow up 3 or 4 times a year. I never knew when it was going to come or go. And it was gradually getting worse. And I'd seen a chiropractor a little bit for it. There was an awesome guy, Dr. Jack Ransbury, in our little town of 2000, and he'd saved my mom's life in my mid-teens. My mom was going downhill really fast, and he pulled it out of the fire. But I was 20. I thought I was smarter than all the old people. So
yeah.
my idea of good chiropractic was a Band-Aid whenever the house was burning down. So I'd fly in there in trouble as soon as I could put on my regular shoes and stand up straight, I would disappear again. But it was getting worse. And there was a moment I remember really clear because I think I was just over 20. My best friend's birthday was that night. All my friends were out celebrating, and I was on the lying on the floor in a dark room with all these pillows around me, trying to find some non-existent position that wasn't agonizing. And I was an avid windsurfer. It takes a lot of wind for a big guy, so there weren't that many good days in the summer. Like when that wind came up, you couldn't find me. I would just disappear. I'd be off the
Yeah.
radar for 2 days. Well, I just missed one the day before. And I was a painting contractor working my way through school. I had a big contract coming up in 3 days. There was a recession and there weren't very many of those, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. And the last big one had just ended the week before. So here I was again. So it was pretty bleak.
Hmm.
I think the worst is, I don't know if you've ever been there, but 2:30 in the morning
Yeah.
when it just really seemed bleak and dark and hopeless. And I felt like my potential was just sliding away on me and my friends were all taking off and I was like stuck in the mud.
Mm.
So I went to see him the next day and it was the end of the day and he invited me to sit in on his report, his class. And he had invited me multiple times before, but I was too busy and too smart, so I hadn't done it. And, I thought, I'm not going anywhere else. I might as well sit here and be miserable. And what he unpacked and explained to me, like, changed the whole course of my life.
Yeah.
I decided I was going to do it his way. And so I got under care and stuck with it. And lo and behold, I got better. The low back thing went away. It never came back.
Hmm.
And about 6 or 8 months in, one day I realized didn't even know where my asthma inhalers were anymore. And so I went and had a big talk with him, and we decided this was God's way of telling me I was going to be a chiropractor.
Yeah.
So, because I looked at what he was doing, I thought, he loves this stuff. He's like, everybody loves him. He gets to see all these things happening. I want that too.
Hmm.
And so that was, and I put my poor mother, I told her and she cried. Like I remember her looking at me going, "Are you ever gonna finish anything?" But she was the proudest mom in the whole U of T convocation hall 4 years later.
Yeah.
So I've stuck with what he taught me my whole adult life. And I'm got a beaten up body because I'm like not risk averse and I've done all these things that nobody else would do and hit the wall a lot of times. But I'm 63 now and I'm as strongest I've been in my whole life. Like I'm lifting just as heavy and just as much as I was 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So if it'll work for me, gosh, like I'm not special, it'll work for anybody.
Yeah. What a great story. I love that. It is so hard, though, how often we hit that bottom before we're really willing to open up to what God has for us, before we're really willing to say, okay, I surrender. I'll do it your way. But what a beautiful thing, though, that you did that at 20. May we all do it, as early, as young as possible so that we can have a life where we are constantly reaching 100% of our potential, whatever that is on that given day.
Yeah, and for anybody who's thinking like it's too late or too far gone, like I got that vision at 20. I was 27 before I started chiropractic school.
Sure.
I finished my nutrition degree. Then I went and spent a year in Whistler skiing and came back, and that was when I started school.
Hmm.
So yeah, a little bit of a late bloomer, but like I'm really blessed. I feel that I started this profession, like graduated and started it at 31, and I've been doing something I love for the last 33 years,
Exactly.
rather than being in a job where I hate
Yes.
and
Yes.
grinding it through. And you know how many people have heart attacks on Mondays? Number one day, because people hate what they do.
Wow.
More heart attacks on Mondays than any other day of the week. And here we are doing something that I go home at my end of my day on Monday feeling great. And even
Yeah.
if the whole reentry thing is a little difficult,
Yeah.
Jenna, like 20 minutes into like my hands on people and focused on someone other than myself, the turbines are already like whining and spinning.
Yes, I love that. And that is so true. And that is such a good reminder to me and to everybody else. Like you said, you jump in and the party starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know that we could talk all day, but thank you for sharing all of this and for being here, for sharing these stories. And thank you for everything that you do for your community and for the world.
Yeah, it's an honor just to have spend half an hour with you, Jenna. You're always light up my day.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.